Alright, Zandvoort National. First time doing this one. Track's 22. From what I've seen in the races, this is kind of a medium track temp, so can get a little quicker if it's cooler, a little slower if it's warmer out. Pretty much just a couple of differences to this track compared to the old one. So if you're familiar with Zandvoort, just fast forward to the end here. I'll go from the beginning for those who have not been on this track before. Do it in slow-mo through the corners, then run it out at full speed. The description will have the setup. The one thing I will say for this track configuration though, ARB of 8 I think is really important. Just some of the fast turns in here are eliminated, so I normally have a 7, but for this one with the tighter corners, 8 I think is really important. If you're struggling with your back end kicking out on you, try 7 just to help you learn the track, but once you've got the track down better, I think you really have to go with 8. So here we go. So coming up turn 1 here, just before the line, just getting on the brakes. 5th gear down into 2nd. Important to brake pretty early and get on the brakes pretty good. Down into 2nd gear and just getting the braking done early so you can pick up the throttle early. It's important to get on the throttle early. You'll really pick up a lot of time through the next couple of corners here, because this is really a lot of full out speed here for the next couple of corners. So run it out wide, shifting up into 3rd and then into 4th. Coming up to this next turn, when the tires are cool you may have to dab the brakes a little bit, but when the tires are warm you should be able to do this corner without braking. Just a car length or so before the end of the curbs here, just shifting down into 3rd and then just easing on the throttle, just to keep the back end steady. You don't want to goose it because you can lose your back end here. If you're carrying too much speed again on cold tires, you may have to just dab the brakes there, shifting down into 3rd. You can run it out wide. You can run it out wide to the track, to the curb here. However, it is important that you do set yourself up for this next section, because you can lose a lot of time if you don't. So if you're out to the curbs here, you do have to make sure you kind of get more mid-track in order to make this next section to do it fast. So for a braking marker, again, cold tires, you may want to actually be getting on the brakes at the end of this curb. But once the tires are warm, you can kind of use this this pole or this little archway here as a guide. Once the tires are warm, you can get into this pretty deep. Shifting down into 2nd gear. Some people will shift right down into 1st gear. I like to shift down into 2nd gear first, and then kind of at this change in pavement color, shift down into 1st. I find just that little delay kind of helps rotate the car a little better. And then just you want to pick up the throttle as early as possible in 1st gear, and again you really want to hold it tight against the inside here. This is really cambered. If you're on the outside, if you're going too wide or something, you're on the outside and you're up top here, you're really going a lot slower because you're missing the camber of this corner, and you try and go too fast, you're gonna push wide or lose your back end. So definitely be aware of that. Coming out here, shifting up into 3rd and then into 4th. Um, use the grasscrete here, or whatever this is, on your exit. Don't get a tire on the gravel or sand. You get an X, and as well, obviously, you're pretty good chance of spinning out. So careful with that. So here, I think this is one of the most miserable corners for skips in iRacing. I do not like this corner at all. This is really dependent on your brakes. How good you are, what your brake bias is. So you really got to feel this out a little bit. Cold tires, obviously, you're braking sooner. You really have to watch this one, because if you run this wide, you just lose a tremendous amount of time, and you can even go off track and spin out and such. So really, you have to watch you don't outbrake yourself here. So as a couple of markers, you can use this signage on the right, the pink part or the black part, braking at those points. You can use this curb. The closer you can get to this curb and start your braking and hold the corner, the better. In a race, if there's a car in front of you, obviously seeing this curb is not going to necessarily be so easy to do. So do be aware of where those signs are and where your braking point is. As well, cold tires, full fuel. I find, yeah, you do have to brake quite a bit earlier in order to make this corner compared to hot tires and low fuel. So watch out for that. So I'm kind of using in my eyes in real time, I'm kind of using the end of this pink as the braking marker. Braking from fourth down into first, and it's really important by the end of this curb that you really have the car slowed down more than you think. You know, if you're just trying this track for the first time, this is a really slow, awkward corner, and you want to get right into this curb. If you get a tire on the grass there, it's pretty strict. I think you get an X, so you can't really cut this corner, but just get onto that curb, and you really have to hold the wheel tight. This is whatever your maximum wheel lock is, you'll probably be using it, and you got to keep really tight up against this curb. As you can see here, even when you get up top, it's kind of off cambered. So normally you might be thinking you're gonna open up the wheel and straighten things up and get some acceleration, but you don't. If you're unwinding the wheel here, you are gonna get onto this off camber section, and you're really gonna run wide into this grass here up top, and it's not good. So you got to keep the wheel tight, and then really at the end of the curb here, that's where you want to unwind the wheels. Once you're kind of up top on the plateau of this track, if you're unwinding on the hill coming up here, you are going to really push wide and lose a lot of time. So yeah, wait till you're up top, then unwind the wheel, and yeah, you can use all of the curb here. That's sort of your target. So this section is the same, but it's a little different just because you're approaching it a little bit different speed and different situation from the Grand Prix configuration. So basically, well, in real time, it looks about mid part of this curb, but in slow motion, I'm braking a little bit before, I guess, the middle point. Down into second gear from fourth. This section is a little tricky if you're not familiar with it. you can take a lot of this curb. You don't want to be any more to the right of it than I am. I think threaded the needle here. So you want to cut this curb as much as you can. If you're doing that, however, you have to watch your throttle. If you're on the throttle too much, or you have too much input into the wheel, it's really easy to spin your back end out here. So if you're cutting this curb, just be aware you don't want to be full throttle, or have the wheel cranked too much. You know, if you're out here a little wider, you certainly can be on the throttle a little bit more and have a little bit more input into the steering. But yeah, just going over that curve and then getting on the gas and shifting down into first, basically as you straighten the wheel and aiming for this inside curb here. Again, this one you can really use a lot of the curb. You just want to make sure you keep your outside wheel on the pavement. If you get too much into this, there's an angle here. It does upset the car, so be aware of that. And then just shifting up into second as early as you can on the throttle early. That's the big trick. And then working your way up into fourth and just exit, you know, to this curb here. So coming up here in fourth gear and just looking for this orange and green at the end of it, shifting down into third. When the tires are cold, you may want to just give it a dab of brakes, but when the tires are warm, it's just a downshift. And again, you really want to use all of the curb and the grasscrete here. If you run it wide, you are going to run into a little bit of trouble here, so it's really important you get right into the crotch of this corner. Full power, shifting up into fourth, just unwinding the wheel out to the curbs here, and you can use this whatever this is, grasscrete, such. You don't want to get a tire into the sand. If you get a little bit into the sand, you'll probably be okay, but if you get really a tire width into the sand, you're going to get an X, and as well you're going to probably lose some control and risk spinning out. So just you don't want to cross this beige bit here. Just working it up into fourth. One important thing is you don't want to turn into the next corner, well, sort of corner. You don't want to turn in too early. Use this straight section as much as you can, just to get the car speeding up with as little steering input as possible. I could have even kept the wheel a little straighter, a little longer, but you really don't want to be turning in until you get to the end of the red and white curb here. That straightlining, it'll just give you a little extra speed and acceleration for the big straight coming up. So watch how early you turn in, and again, you just don't want to be cranking the wheel here. Just minimize the steering input just to keep the acceleration as good as possible. And just unwinding the wheel, and then you're headed to the straight. So it's a 121.4, definitely a little time to be had. I left some time on the track there, but just really watch that new turn. It is miserable. It takes a lot of practice. It's so easy to go in too deep, and if you do, it's a lot of time lost. So watch it out there. I think I think that new turn is going to cause some big issues with some car contact. We'll see what happens. Good luck. See you out there. We'll run it out at full speed.